Welcome to the Health Revolution, the show that leads you to a life of vibrant well-being. In a world full of noisy health trends, we bring you clarity through a sea of fads. We reveal the science behind the strategies that truly work. We explore physical strength, emotional resilience, and mental mastery, the keys to an enriched life. See inspiring interviews with the champions who've conquered life's challenges. Are you ready to unlock your potential to live with vitality and purpose? Then join the health revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, health and fitness expert, speaker, and a mom who understands. Let's embark on this transformative quest together. If you want to change the game, it all starts now. Welcome, everybody. You are watching the Health Revolution, and we're excited that you are joining us today. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. No matter which way you're tuning into us, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We want to stay connected to you. Also, at the bottom of your screen, there is a tab for show episode notes. Be mindful of that. There is some important information and some reference information that you're going to want to tap into going forward. And we want to welcome newer viewers to the show. We're appreciating you to join us. Of course, we're all things exploring the physical strength of the human body, emotional resilience, and mental mastery. And returning viewers, we also we want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today. I'm excited about today's episode because we are diving into what it takes to heal and grow from the front lines of mental health. My guest today is someone who is well versed in understanding and studying how to help us integrate those components so that we are leading an optimal life through any mental health challenges that we are facing today. There are different avenues we're going to target. I'm excited about diving into this conversation. Let's get to know him first. Take a look at this. Meet Frank Jones, a licensed marriage and family therapist with over 20 years of experience helping individuals, families, and couples overcome life's biggest challenges. Before becoming a clinician, Frank spent 14 years in radio and television, building a deep understanding of people from every walk of life. He's also the best-selling author of Heal and Grow: Lessons Learned on My Journey as a Mental Health Professional, where he shares the powerful insights gained from decades of service. Today, we will learn how healing, growth, and resilience can transform every part of our lives. Frank Jones, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Adriana. I definitely appreciate you allowing me to come on your show, come on the program, The Health
Yes.
Revolution.
You know, I'm fascinated by your backstory.
Mhm.
First of all, you have history in radio and television, but also you're a licensed marriage and family therapist, an LMFT. So
Right.
can you share with us just the definition of what a licensed marriage and therapist, family therapist does, and then what helped you transcend to be in this line of work?
Well, it's very funny, but let me first say an LMFT, or a licensed marriage and family therapist, they do a variety of typical things that you would expect a therapist or a counselor to do. So that means I've done a lot of individual therapy, family therapy, as well as couples therapy. I've even done some premarital counseling. I actually have a premarital course that I do. And basically doing what I can to help people through whatever personal struggles they're dealing with, whether it's depression, anxiety, relationship challenges. And that's pretty much what I do, or what an LMFT would tend to do. As far as what got me into it, it's a very interesting journey. So, of course, you mentioned I worked in radio. And then at some point, I kind of got a little bored with radio and I moved out to LA. I'm originally from Chicago. And I started working on a variety of different television shows. I worked on Family Feud. It was a long time ago. I worked on Howie Mandel. He had a daytime talk show, and I worked on his show. But the last program that I worked on is the one that put me on the path to being a mental health professional. It was actually Divorce Court. And at that time, Judge Maybelline Ephraim was presiding. And that was a very challenging show to work on. It really was, trying to find guests to book on the show. I mean, you get one person who's interested in being on the program, but then you have to call the spouse and say, hey, your wife called us and said you might be interested in appearing on our show, sometimes getting cursed out because a lot of people don't want their personal business on national television. But the one thing that I really liked about working on that program was that sometimes I would hear their stories because we would have to learn about their background. And people would actually say, even though you can't book me for the show for whatever reason I don't qualify, thank you for just listening to me. I feel better just having someone I could talk to. And it was at that point I realized, I think this is what I want to do next. And so, literally, while I was there, I started looking for schools to go back to do a grad program. And so, I did my graduate studies in California before I moved to London.
And you bring up. I'm fascinated by. I did not know this before our conversation today that you were part of divorce court. Can you tell our viewers what the premise of the show is? Because I did catch it from time to time, but I always felt like I never sat and watched through the entire duration. Is the premise to final? Is a decision made to divorce or to not
Well,
divorce,
to
or
be honest with you, now I don't even know if the show is still on now. I have no idea. But
I remember seeing it, but
when I worked on it, the premise of the show, other than entertainment for the audience, but basically you have people who agreed to come on their show, air their grievances, their struggles, and then the judge is supposed to say, okay, you know what? You get this and you get that. Now, here's some things that most people did not realize that we had to tell them once they came on the program or once they were considering coming on the program. First of all, we can't grant you a divorce because we couldn't grant you a divorce because you appeared on the show, which is what a lot of people believed. Different people get married in different states, and so there's different laws. And so we can't, you're coming to, at that point we were recording in California, so you're coming out there. If you got married in New Mexico, we can't grant you a divorce. Secondly, Judge Maybelline Ephraim, she was not an official judge. She was a legal arbitrator. So she could arbitrate and settle disputes um, that they didn't even have to agree upon. So after we would record a program, if she decides, okay, you get this and you owe her that and she gets that, afterwards they could go into a green room and they could sign that agreement, and then that becomes a legal document which then they could take to somebody in their city. But if they don't sign, there's no way anybody could enforce it. So that's pretty much how the show worked.
And what surprised you most about the show that obviously that had an impact on you to becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist? But what was the takeaway that you had that surprised you the most?
I would say one thing that surprised me was how impactful, or the struggles that people go through when they're in a difficult or even dysfunctional relationship, how it affects every aspect of their being, their mood, their mindset. It produces a lot of depression and anxiety when what's supposed to be one of your closest, most intimate relationships, you're struggling. And so people be so overwhelmed with almost depression, and they just wanted a way out. That's one reason why they would call up divorce court. They're trying to get some help. They're trying to either work through this or move beyond it. And just hearing that and just realizing that I could help people just by giving them an ear, that really surprised me. That, wow. I got a lot of thank yous for listening because there were a lot of reasons why we could not accept somebody for the show.
And did you always have an ear to listen like this, or was this something that you felt was a surprise
You
that
know,
was?
going back to even high school, I was always the person who people brought their problems to. Always. Female friends, guy friends, calling after school in the hallways. Frank, can I talk to you for a minute? I got that all the time. It happened so often that when I told my closest friends who've known me for a long time, hey, I think I'm going to go to grad school and become a therapist, literally people said, duh, like, that's not news. We're not shocked to hear you're going to be a therapist, because that's what I had been attempting to provide counseling for the longest time. Even at one stint when I was in radio, I was temporarily doing, and I was filling in for an overnight disc jockey who was on a medical leave. And when I was there was 1 hour of the show. This show was on from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m., but there was 1 hour I focused on relationships. And I wasn't even a therapist then. I was just working in radio. And I said, it's time for the relationship hour where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly in relationships. And I just let people call in and share their stories in between me playing songs because it was an R&B station. And so even during that, that was kind of an indication of probably where I was going to end up.
So was it like kind of like the quiet storm, and then you would have conversation, and then
Like I would,
so
and you know what's really funny? I didn't even ask our program director, could I do it? I just started doing it. I was like, it's late night. He's probably asleep. And so, and I was literally, normally in radio, when you take a caller, you record it because you never know what people are going to say. I was doing live calls on the radio. I was being very risky because you never know what people are going to say. And like, I mean, tonight we're going to talk about dating in the workplace. Call me up with your experiences if you've done that. And so that's what I would do. Dating
wow.
someone who's significantly older than you. Have you done that? Give me a call.
And did you? And obviously, you had surprise calls, or was there
It,
calls that maybe weren't sure how it was going to
no,
go?
everybody went well, and I knew I had to be very concise because it's a music station. So I knew if I let like it would just be like a 2, 3, 4 minute conversation, and then I go into another song,
Okay.
and then I would find another caller after that next song, and I would just go right to them. I just did it for 1 hour because I didn't want to get in trouble. I never got in trouble. To this day, I don't know if my program director ever knew that I was doing that.
Very cool.
Yeah,
And so obviously there were patterns, I'm going to assume, that started to surface, that maybe trends, where you're noticing a few trends with those who are kind of just sharing their stories. And what did you notice back then that really impacted you with how you became an LMFT, especially on the radio station?
well, I guess for me, it wasn't like really I noticed trends. I think it was more about who I always have been as a person. And that's always been somebody who's wanted to be there for others. I mention it, I always tell people, I even mentioned in my book that I have like what I call a superhero complex. I used to read a lot of Marvel comics when I was a kid. As a matter of fact, to be honest with you, I still collect older Marvel comics even now as an adult. But as a kid, I think I always loved the idea of saving and rescuing people. And that just continued even throughout my life. But it definitely started when I was young, trying to be there for people, trying to be a friend. And so even on the radio show where I was providing an opportunity, I had another radio show where I had a feature called Positive Achiever of the Week, where uh, parents could nominate somebody 18 years or under who did something positive in their lives or in the community. And so I would get these letters, they would come to the radio station, and then I would pick one. And the night before that show, I would call up their parent and say, hey, I've selected your son or your nephew, and we're going to put them on the air live and give them some radio station merchandise. And I would actually get a plaque made with their name on it, and it would say Positive Achiever of the Week and the radio station and the call letters. And so that was just me always wanting to make a positive impact in the lives of other people.
And I love that idea because obviously you're holding recognition, and I'm sure that there was that pleasantly surprised, like me, that they were
Exactly. Because what would happen, I would literally call up like the next day, I would call that person up, the young person. They would go, they didn't know. And then I would tell them who I was. And then I would start reading part of the letter that their parent or guardian or whatever adult sent. And I would start reading it. Oh, this is an amazing story. And because of this, that's why you are this week's winner for the Positive Achiever of the Week. And I've got a plaque for you, a station T-shirt, and CDs. And I would just give them all that. And they really were very excited to receive that type of recognition, especially, it was for 18 and under. So you
wow.
can imagine how excited they were to be on local radio in Chicago and get an award.
And something like that, I mean, obviously that's a feel good moment. That's
Mhm.
that person feels seen, heard, all of
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Are elements of that missing in society?
Oh my goodness, yes. I think a lot of the reasons why people are so addicted to social media, or why people love being on camera doing a variety of different things and expressing their viewpoints and jumping off cliffs, and because so many people want to be seen, so many people want to be heard, they want acknowledgement, and it's the need is greater than ever before. It's weird. Through advancements in technology, our world has expanded, but I think people have been more isolated and cut off at the same time. Like people don't feel as connected despite having the ability to connect with anybody at any time. People still find themselves by themselves, whether they're just scrolling or searching or reading or looking at videos. And so people keep doing things to get more attention, to get noticed.
Do you feel like is that specific to any of the generations, whether it's Gen X, even boomers, millennials, Gen Z? Do you think it's specific, or are you noticing that it's across the board?
I think it's here's what's interesting. I think the younger generations, we're talking millennials and Gen Z, they've become a group where they really can't get enough attention. They're like attention starved almost. But some of that is now rubbing off on the older generations. It's, in my opinion, it's very interesting to now, like, there are older people who also want attention and want to be seen and want to be heard. You would think the older people set the pathway for the younger, but no, the younger people are affecting us too.
What's your biggest worry, or what is your biggest concern in terms of mental health? What comes up for you as a disturbing trend or something to be on the lookout for?
The biggest trend that I am so concerned about is the amount of pressure that people feel just living life in today's world. So many clients come to me, well, like new clients, they may be dealing with depression, they may be dealing with anxiety, they may be dealing with a toxic work environment, but everyone is so overwhelmed. I hear the phrase, I'm so tired. I don't know how much longer I can deal with this. I hear those things all the time, and everybody just seems to be on edge and stressed out, and the news is not helping. I often joke they should call the news bad news at 11, because most of the stories are typically not feel good stories. They are stories that make us feel anxious, make us feel worried or concerned, whether it's political or crime or something else. And then the relationships we have that we struggle with, and everybody's just so overwhelmed. And some people are using coping strategies that aren't the healthiest. If you're stressed out and you want to go to the gym, that's great. But if you're stressed out and you're going to use drugs or going to spend money you don't have to spend or engage in, promiscuous sexual activities like that, those are negative ways to address what you might be dealing with. And, for example, a very unfortunate way that a lot of people cope, and this has started with the younger generation, of course, is cutting. And I've had several clients, adolescents, who engage in the activity of cutting. And despite some people believe that cutting is a way of seeking attention, actually it's not. For most cutters, it's how they cope, coping with stress. Stress coming from their parents, stress coming from society, stress coming from their peers. And that's just an indication of like how so many people, I've had to talk to parents and tell them, do you feel like you're putting your child under a lot of stress, whether it's the expectations of grades or some other form of achievement or sports? And I don't think parents are aware. When I was a kid, me and my friends, we played with each other, but it wasn't like parents had to take their kids to all these different events. Most of my clients now, the adults are stressed because they feel obligated to take their children to so many different activities. I got to take them here. I got to take her there. I got to take them there. And they're putting pressure on themselves, and they may be putting pressure on the child if the child is doing something that they're not really interested in. But so this pressure that society puts on people now is coming from so many different directions,
And this is
including from within the home.
and this is profound, and this is where we're gonna dive into the book, and I can't wait to do so. First, we're gonna take a commercial break. We will be right back. Stay put.
So in the calm bag, it has GABA, theanine, and taurine. So theanine, which is B1, which is also in our B complex, but it also helps with the stress response levels. It also helps with the neurological transmitters in our brain. Combined with the GABA, and then you add taurine to it. Taurine is a non-essential amino acid in our body, but it's found in our heart, our brain, and our eyes. So in my personal opinion, it's very essential in our lives. But taurine has a calming effect as well. When I was battling all my AFib issues, I was taking high doses of taurine because that would help with my AFib. It would help with the palpitations I was having. And it also helped with the anxiety of having the palpitations because I knew what was going on, and so taurine helps a lot with that as well. So those three together create such a wonderful concoction that just really just calms people down.
Introducing Launchpad, the perfect partner to help you launch your dream project to the world. We know that time is of the essence, and we're here to help you make the most of it. With Launchpad, you'll get access to the most advanced digital tools and strategies to take your idea from a mere concept to a fully fledged success. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or a seasoned pro, we have everything you need to make your mark in the world. Launchpad, your ultimate launch partner.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about healing and growing from the front lines of mental health. Our guest today, Frank Jones, he's a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's also the author of the book, Heal and Grow, Lessons Learned on My Journey as a Mental Health Professional. And before the break, Frank, I know you were diving into some of the concerns that you had that come up for you, that the societal pressures that are on, that younger kids, young adults are the recipient of because of a unique pattern that parents are kind of bestowing upon that young person to be in all the things and do all the things. And what's the one take you want for parents to understand about being mindful of this being a habit we don't want to fall into?
Right, right. Before I answer that question, I do want to also say that social media also adds pressure to young people, especially because they compare themselves to others. And so a long time ago, they only compared themselves to their fellow students, classmates, people they saw every day. Now they get to compare themselves to their peers in school, but also their peers online. So I want to say that. So what parents, I think, need to be aware of is that, first of all, you were young too. And there are certain things that you did want to do, certain things you didn't want to do. But there was also some things that there were stresses that we were dealing with, say, when we were teenagers, that we didn't tell our parents about. There were lots of stresses. And so when a parent is adding additional pressure, you're stacking on whatever it is they're dealing with that you didn't know about. It could be something as simple as being bullied. Perhaps they just broke up with somebody you didn't even know they were dating. Maybe they don't feel connected to their peer group. Maybe they're sitting in the cafeteria by themselves. And so when all of a sudden you're adding this, an adult is adding this additional pressure, your grades aren't good enough. Maybe they really were trying as hard as they could. And yes, you may want them to do better. And if you do, maybe find them a tutor for that particular subject. But just please understand that even though they are young and a parent can easily feel, what do they have to worry about? What do they need to be stressed out about? They have stressors too. You just don't know about them.
Very powerful. I do want to segue into your book that I do have in my hands, Heal and Grow, the lessons learned on my journey as a mental health professional. Talk to us about when you decided to write the book, the goal behind the book, who's it for? And then, of course, I do want to dive into it. Share with us the backstory behind how the book came to fruition.
Okay. Well, for years, and I mean years, probably 20 years, I've always thought it would be cool to write a book. But nothing ever came to me to write about, whether fiction, nonfiction, nothing really came to me. And one day, prior to the pandemic, it was probably maybe 6 months before the pandemic, I was in the kitchen. I think I was getting something to eat. I might have been making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, to be honest with you. And something said, like it hit, it was like a voice. It said, you should write a book about your experiences as a mental health professional, or better yet, what you've learned from being a mental health professional. At this point, you're approaching 20 years in the field. Clearly, there are some things you can share, and then you can share some of your own personal stories with it. It was that clear. And from that moment on, thoughts kept coming to me that I would write on note cards, post-it notes. And before I realized, Frank, you can just put these notes in your phone too. And so I just started whenever thoughts came to me at any time. I could be walking the dog. I could be waking up in the morning. I could literally be asleep, changing positions. And a thought would, you need to put that in the book. And I would just jot it down. And I did that for probably about a year. I had notes everywhere, and at one point I felt, okay, it's time, it's enough. And all the notes I had taken on my phone, I emailed them to myself and I printed them out. And then I had to cut all these strips of paper because sometimes they were random thoughts, and try to organize this was on this focuses on that subject. And then I started getting up early in the morning and putting it all together into a book.
And
That's how it started.
and who is this for? Who is the intentional reader? Who all can benefit from this?
My hope or plan was that this book would be for anyone who wanted to heal, anyone who wanted to grow. Hence the title, Heal and Grow. If a person is satisfied with who they are and their life, then maybe this book isn't for them. But for those people who really feel like, there's some issues that may be unresolved, or maybe I could use some help, and I don't want to go see a professional. I'm all about seeing a professional, but everybody doesn't want to go see a therapist or a clinician. But perhaps this may open your mind up to considering it. And if not, maybe you will still gain something from this. So I tried to make this book for almost anyone who could benefit from it. I tell my students, because I teach at a community college here, I tell them all the time, if we have breath in our body and a brain that still functions, we should be trying to grow and evolve.
I love that. And one of my favorite things to do anytime we have conversations with authors on the show is to just poke around a little bit at the book. And so I just one of the things, I had a couple chapters I wanted to do that with, but then also what came to mind is what you said. And I want to just talk about how you have one chapter where you are talking about if you're ready to grow. And you talked about 3 important bullet points that can segue a person's readiness to grow. You talked about number 1, being aware or admitting that there's an issue that needs to be addressed. And then 2, you talked about 2, truly wanting to change. And then 3, be willing to work. Now, as simple as this is,
Yes.
there's such loaded actionable steps. Can you talk a little bit about the essence behind being aware and admitting that there's an issue to be addressed, what comes up for some people, same thing about truly wanting to change, and then be willing to work. Can you dive into those three elements?
Yes. So, first of all, to change any challenge, I like to use the word challenge over a problem, but you have to notice, you have to know that, hey, this is something I need to do something about. I need to try to address as best as I can. It's like if a person is an alcoholic and they go to AA, one of their sayings is that I admit that I have a problem and I need help. And so you have to be aware to start thinking about changing. If you don't, then you're just going to continue living the life that you've been living. So everything has to start with awareness when we're trying to produce change. Um, Now, people actually change for different reasons. But you need to want to change and you have to be willing to put in the work, but I'll get that to a second. So I find that there are 3 reasons why people tend to want to change. Number one, they're actually fed up with whatever has been going on. They've had enough. That's it. This has to stop, whether it's addiction, whether it's not doing what they need to do in the gym. They're just fed up, and so they decide I want to change. And so that's a great reason to change because you want to do it for you. Enough is enough. Another reason people want to change is because life slaps them in the face or punches them in the mouth. And I prefer not to do that. I prefer not to change because life, when I say life punches you in the mouth, it means something happens where now you're forced to. You didn't want to quit smoking before, but now the doctor says you have lung cancer. That's life punching you in the mouth and saying, now are you going to change? And some people do change when life hits them that hard. But then finally, once you want to change, it's so important to be willing to do the work. And doing the work probably means doing something that you didn't do before, doing something that's going to be challenging, and most importantly, doing whatever that is consistently.
You bring up a really good point that I want to get your take on. The subject around comfort zone. And based on what you said, I'm curious to get your opinion. Would you say that for those who see the benefit of changing, of embracing the challenge, but then elevating past whatever circumstances going on, for those who are unsuccessful in doing so, is there an attachment to their comfort zone that maybe they're putting more value in the comfort zone versus what they stand to gain if they do the work?
You know, it's tough for me to think how a person doesn't grow and evolve without getting uncomfortable. It's so easy to stay in that comfort zone, quote unquote, area, but in reality, growth comes from the struggle, usually from the strain. I mean, you know about exercise, and you know that to get muscles to grow, they have to be stressed, and that's how it has to happen. And so sometimes stepping out that comfort zone is required to get to where we want to get to. And I think not only embracing the uncomfort, but embracing the fear that some people have. And sometimes that fear, that uncertainty stops people from trying to move forward as well.
Just really edify their career. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of effort that goes into them being able to be extremely successful in their different professions. I do want to segue that. I want to connect that to when someone is really challenged in their line of profession. And I know that as I'm skipping through, I'm going to poke around a little bit more.
Mhm.
In this chapter on page 114, you talk about feeling stuck in a job. And one of the things that you talk about is, and I just want to read a little excerpt you said here, quote, throughout the years, I've seen clients come to therapy for the sole purpose of dealing with anxiety or stress as a result of their job. Now, I've also experienced the challenges of providing support and examining possible solutions for someone working in a toxic environment. You then go on to write, it would be easy for me to say to a client, why don't you just leave and get another job, quote unquote. However, the reality is that most people can't just up and quit a job because they don't like how they're being treated or because they don't like their boss. They likely have financial obligations to their families and to themselves, which make it difficult to simply leave. Can you talk a little bit about the complexities behind feeling stuck in a job and creating the calls to action to improve on that scenario, and why so many people just the behind the scenes mechanisms with why this can be incredibly challenging?
Well, like you've read, some people are forced to stay with a job because you have bills to pay, mouths to feed, and so you're stuck. But when we're in a work environment that is toxic, that is stressful, that is demanding, eventually it's going to affect a person's mental and emotional well-being. It just is. And now you run the risk of compromising your health, not just mentally but physically. I mean, ulcers are a result, or heart problems and high blood pressure. Those are all issues that can come out because of the stress related to a job. And if you really think about it, the average job, you're at 8 hours a day, not including the commute time. So a large part of your life is in this environment that is stressing you out. And it's important to determine how much of that you can deal with and for how long can you deal with it. Now, I had a client, she became a client last year. I think it was last fall. And she was one of the many clients who came to me strictly because of what was going on with her at her job. As a matter of fact, her job was so stressful. She was demonstrating signs of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Almost talking about her job would stress her out, often leading to even tears. And I'm never going to tell a person you need to get out of that environment because I don't know your circumstances. You have to do what you have to do. And I will tell the client and those who's dealing with that type of thing that I can support you with exploring alternatives relating to leaving that job. Or we can try to work on strategies and coping skills to help you deal with remaining there. Whichever way you want to do this, we can do this because there are ways to try to help somebody deal with, because let's be honest, a lot of people are at a job they don't like. I mean, there's statistics that show the vast majority of the people don't like their jobs. And so therefore, you might need to invest in some self-care or other ways to manage being there or leaving. I didn't like working at divorce court. Oh my.
Really?
I
Fascinating.
It was the reason why it was very stressful because we had what was called tape days. So let's say next week there's a tape day. We're doing 10 shows over a 2-day window of time. But what if the associate producers, which I was, and the producers, we don't have enough couples yet? So now they're going to say things like, we're staying late, or we're working this weekend. We don't have enough clients. And it was just that pressure. It became toxic because they were expressing anger and demands on us. And it just made it not a pleasant place to work at. But I found ways to make it manageable. So I would go to work saying, you know what, maybe I will be a help or a blessing just listening to someone. That became my whole motivation for going to work. It wasn't about booking guests. It was like, I'm just going to see who I can be there for today. And then I took music and I had my little headset so I would listen to music that I liked. I had came up with strategies to help deal with my work setting.
So real quickly before we go to break, one question I had is you do teach in the college setting.
Yes.
So how do you segue concerns for someone who, or seeing trends in a toxic work environment? And how do you share those concerns with up and coming students who maybe just have not had that work experience, but they're going into professions that could potentially have a toxic work environment? What are some things that you always make sure that you cover with students to keep in mind of?
Well, I first of all, I try to make my class very inspirational, motivational. So you would ask any of my students, they know at least one day a week, class is going to start by watching a motivational video on YouTube. That's class is starting that
Oh, I
way.
like that.
And it might be managing stress, it might be overcoming challenges, it might be not giving up. So I'm always promoting those type of messages to my students. And then at some point during the semester, we're going to talk. There's a whole chapter in our textbook. It's basic psychology, and we're going to talk about the chapters on stress. And during that chapter, I get to zero in on what life brings you, ways to deal with it. Because unfortunately, a lot of young people think, I don't know, life is a smoothly paved road when we know it's not. There's bumps, there's debris, there's twigs, there's potholes, and we all have to be able to try to manage that and realize that there's opportunities for growth that lie within the struggle.
Truly, there are. We're going to take a commercial break. We will be right back. Stay right there. Thank you so much for watching The Health Revolution. Our show is growing, and it's all thanks to viewers like you. No matter how you found us, please hit the subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue to deliver amazing content to you. Hi, I'm Adriana, and welcome to Fit Bites. Today, let's talk about joint mobility and why it's so important as we get older. Now, our joints are what keeps us moving, but as we age, stiffness and reduced mobility can make daily activities harder and increase the risk of injury. Maintaining joint mobility helps to improve flexibility, balance, and posture, which are all critical for staying active and independent. Without regular movement, our joints become stiff, leading to discomfort, reduced range of motion, and even chronic pain. What's the good news? You can keep your joints healthy by incorporating simple mobility exercises into your routine. Try dynamic stretches like arm circles, hip openers, or cat-cow stretches to loosen up and improve your range of motion. Yoga and Tai Chi are also excellent for keeping joints flexible and strong. Don't forget to stay hydrated and include anti-inflammatory foods like fatty fish, nuts, and leafy greens in your diet to support joint health from the inside out. Remember, movement is medicine. Take care of your joints and they will take care of you. Stay tuned for more Fit Bites with Adriana. Our guest today, Frank Jones, he's a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's also the author of the book, Heal and Grow. We're diving into this. Lessons learned on my journey as a mental health professional. And before the break, we were talking about different segments of the book. I do want to hold space for, you have a chapter, Frank, on men and therapy. And I love what you wrote here. You said there are several reasons why I wanted to write a chapter that focuses exclusively on men. First, I'm far more aware of the emotional, mental, and societal challenges that a male may be forced to deal with in today's world. And then you write, second, women have a greater ability to know when they're struggling and then seek assistance in the form of friends, therapists, family members, and so on. And you dive into that and you talk a little bit about getting men to see a therapist. What's one thing that is so profound for you on this subtopic that would be important to know?
Unfortunately, men tend to view therapy as some type of weakness. And that is a big concern of mine. There's a lot of pressure that men in today's world face that people don't really talk about. Men trying to live up to what society says a man is supposed to be, how he's supposed to navigate the world, how he's supposed to talk and walk and act. And so men see that and they feel that pressure. I mean, if you really think about it, from at a very young age, boys are taught to literally keep their emotions inside. For example, like when they get hurt, don't cry. Big boys don't cry. And then as they get older, the message becomes man up, don't be a punk, and things like that. And so then he becomes a full adult, and so he's been taught already that whatever he's struggling with, physically, mentally, emotionally, suck it up. And so, therefore, why would a male feel comfortable with going to a therapist when that might look like weakness? Now, of course, there are men who do that. I have male clients, but I can assure you, most of my clients are not males. It's a greater number. Now, I do have several couples. I do have a lot of couples, and I always find it fascinating to see whose idea was it to come to therapy. But men have that pressure of always feeling the need to feel strong and have it together. That's why a man who needs help, if you ask him, "Are you okay?" He's, "No, I'm good. I got it. I'm okay."
Now, is part of that him trying to convince himself that he's okay? Do you notice that that's a pattern, that it's that level of self reassurance that is coming out in conversation?
I think a big part of it is trying to convince themselves that they can figure this out on their own. There's nothing wrong with them. They don't need therapy. And I'm not even saying every male or every person for that matter needs to go to see a therapist. There are so many different ways to quote unquote heal and grow. It doesn't mean having to go see a therapist. Uh, but it's a good start. I mean, if everybody had a really good friend who they could trust, who could listen without judgment, who could care for them unconditionally, we probably wouldn't need therapists. But unfortunately, it's tough for people to listen without judgment. And so, therefore, a male is more often than not will tend to just say, you know what, I've just figured it out. Meanwhile, maybe even suffering in the meantime.
I'm curious, when you think about seeing couples,
Mhm,
when couples have come to see you,
mhm.
is there any sort of revelation for, say, like, you have the man who is there reluctantly or begrudgingly, like, I'm here just because, and this is we've decided on.
Mhm.
Is there any aha moment that you've noticed that maybe uh, the encouragement of self-reflection, that when it happens in session, that suddenly it's like, oh, I feel better. Do you see that in the men that come in for couples therapy?
Well, what I've learned, what I've seen when it comes to couples therapy, if I can connect with the male, they're far more willing to be open to the aha moment. They're far more open to listen to what I may be trying to present to them. But I have to have that connection. They have to feel that they're safe. They have to feel like, okay, you know what? I can relate to Frank. Like, he's a good guy. And once I do that, I got them actually. Like, they'll come back for future sessions. But if they don't feel a connection with me, they're going to be like, I'm not going back.
Do you feel like it doesn't matter that it's the generation when you talk about men and the struggles that they have with just the overall idea of looking at therapy as immediate help or something that they could benefit from? Is it regardless of the generation, or is there a generation that has the tendency to feel this way?
Well, I feel like over the years, people in general, male, female, different races, nationalities, have increasingly become more open to therapy. I mean, you have celebrities now, whether they're sports or actors, talk about, oh yeah, I was in therapy or my therapist told me. And so it's becoming far more common than it used to be, and that's great. But at this time, there are no specific generations. I know, like for example, my clients. I don't see a lot of clients who are, let's say, over 60. A few, but very rarely. Not that many, because from that generation, it feels like you figure it out. You pull up your bootstraps, or maybe if they come from a religious background, you take it to the Lord, you take it to God, and so they have that mentality. Um, so it is been becoming more acceptable, but for men though, it still could be viewed as weakness. So they're still not keeping up with the times, other generations, and even women. in general. Like I said, there are men who are open to getting the help that they need.
But very powerful that things are changing. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Stay put. Today, we've been spending quality time with our guest, Frank Jones. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's also the author of the best-selling book, Heal and Grow, Lessons Learned on My Journey as a Mental Health Professional. Frank, where can we find you in the virtual space?
Well, you can go to my website, which will give you information about me, the book, Heal and Grow, Lessons Learned on My Journey as a Mental Health Professional. And also, there's merchandise on the website that ties in with the book. There's t-shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs. So that website is ffrancisjones.com. So that's Francis Jones, Jones.com. That's the website. And then I can also be connected with on Instagram, and that is F Francis Jones for Healing. Francis Jones, the number 4, healing. And I also have little messages of inspiration and some videos that I've posted on there as well. And also, if you want to go to LinkedIn, I'll be honest, I don't spend a lot of time on there, but if you want to go there, it's F, open parenthesis, F period, Francis, Francis, close parenthesis, Jones. So you can reach me through LinkedIn as well.
But you're on LinkedIn, and obviously that's
I am on LinkedIn.
Yes,
yes, I am.
What is so? What else do you have going on for the rest of 2025? What's on the agenda?
Well, I have I know I at least have 1 or 2 panel discussions. One of them involves men in therapy, actually, ironically. I have that coming up, and continue to promote not just the book, but more importantly, promoting the messages that are within the book, whether that's through Instagram or personal appearances or speaking engagements. And I am starting the process of pulling together different thoughts and ideas for my next book. So I'm probably going to start on that later this year as well.
Okay. And what is the one takeaway you want to make sure our audience, our viewing audience, gets from your message?
I really want them to understand that we all have challenges and issues. We all deal with different pain, but that we can be healed, that we can grow through these things, not just go through a challenging situation, but grow through it. I mean, if we look at nature, nature embraces the struggle, like whether it's a caterpillar or coming through the cocoon. There was a struggle getting out that cocoon, or a baby chick coming out the egg, but those struggles provide opportunities to become stronger, and that there's different ways to heal and grow, and just finding the one or the multiple ways that work for you, whether it's through books, videos, seminars, church. There's ways to get through the struggles that we face so often.
The book is called Heal and Grow, Lessons Learned on My Journey as a Mental Health Professional. Frank Jones, we really appreciate your time and energy. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, Adriana, thank you for having me on the Health Revolution. This has been fun.
Yes, we appreciate you. And we want to give a quick shout out and a thank you to our sponsors for supporting our show: Biomed Mobile IV, Dapper Mobile Apps, Launchpad, and Synergize Fitness. And for our viewers, you can find us on the web. Our website is thehealthrevolutiontv.com. There you can subscribe to our newsletter. You can also email us with any show episode ideas you would love for us to cover. Upper corner of your screen, you're going to find our QR code, and that way you can, as the crow flies, grab that information. And let's not forget, you can always find us every Tuesday and Thursday on E360 TV and our ever-growing distribution handles, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. That's all the time that we have for today. Until next time, take care of yourselves. We will see you soon.